Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. This is a book I want to share with you. I got wondering if there was other books that had been published since the time I was looking for Martin Gardner books by Martin Gardner, and there was this published in 2009, and actually Martin Gardner died in 2010. At the time he died, he was 95 and 7 months. And he was born in 1914 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he died in Norman, Oklahoma. And so there's one bookstore online I can type in and see what they have. And they had a used copy of the title that I wasn't familiar with. When You Were a Tadpole and I Was a Fish, and other speculations about this and that. And I think it was about that, and other speculations about this and that caught my eye. So I went down to have a look at it. And because, well, I wanted to know what it was about. And it's been broken into different sections. There's a science section, and one of the titles in the science section, he wrote something called Isaac Newton's Vast Ocean of Truth. And I thought, oh, well, I'm going to do a video on Newton in just a few weeks from now. That'll be handy. And then and the next one is bogus science. Was the sinking of the Titanic foretold? And I thought, well, I'm going to do something on the Titanic for sure, with icebergs in particular. Lots of good reading. I know I've mentioned and shown maybe one book about it, but there's a lot more, and I want to do that, going back through things. Mathematics section, there's a Fibonacci sequence, and Tromonel tiling of mutilated chessboards. I said, oh, it's good, it's good. And literature, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And I got thinking, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And so I got home. There were, and there it was. Yeah, the annotated, I got this book, but this book I got a long time ago. Our oldest son really enjoyed reading all the books that L. Frank Baum wrote. This is the one that most people are familiar about, but he wrote others, and I'm going to share those in the next video. The Annotated World of Oz, and so I opened it up, and well, there's a picture of L. Frank Baum, a portrait poster of him, issued in 1900, courtesy of Martin Gardner. And acknowledgments. I'm grateful to the following persons for contributing in one way or another to the preparation of this work. Doris Fronsdorf, Martin Gardner, etc., alphabetically. So there's Martin Gardner again. And so introduction, and the wizard starts on page 83. So this is the annotated part here at the first introduction. No children's book of the 20th century has proved to be as popular or as controversial as The Wizard of Oz. When Bobbs Merrill issued their first edition in 1903, a reviewer remarked, "Mr. L. Frank Baum's first delicious bit of nonsense is amusing to the little people, and even more so to their elders. It is no small gift to write a juvenile which is not inane, and this gift Mr. Baum possesses to a degree which is almost monopoly." Well, yeah, I like children's books, and certainly some more than others, but that's an interesting comment from the time. Now, even as a boy, Baum was a dreamer who preferred to spend his time alone. He had been born with a defective heart and was forbidden to play any of the rough games of childhood. He was educated by private tutors and soon became enthralled with the fat novels of the popular Victorian authors. Besides reading, he had an early interest in writing poetry and novels. To cure him of his daydreaming, his mother sent him to the Peekskill Military Academy. Unaccustomed to the harsh treatment of a military school, he suffered a heart attack and was immediately withdrawn. Years later, he described the preference of his instructors to slap or use a cane for discipline purposes. These early experiences at school evidently was responsible for the many caricatures of educators and military men in his stories. Now, he got interested in the theater, and because his father was involved, and so he acted for several of his father's theaters, as manager for several of his father's theaters. He was ready to form his own company and produce his own play. The Maid of Erin was an Irish melodrama, typical of the times, based upon a popular novel called The Princess of Tulle, 1874. Book, lyrics, and music were all written by Louis F. Baum, who was also stage manager and took one of the leading roles. And Aunt Catherine joined the company to look after young Frank. The play proved to be so successful in Syracuse that the production went on the road, traveling north into Canada and as far west as Kansas, as well as spending a profitable week in New York. He was to know theatrical prosperity only once more in the 1902 musical The Wizard of Oz. On a visit home during the run of The Maid of Erin, he met Maud Gage in Fayetteville, New York, the daughter of a prominent suffragette, Matilda Jocelyn Gage. Mrs. Gage was instrumental in drafting the Women's Bill of Rights, as well as in the first women's rights convention held in New York State. With Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. She wrote the 4-volume History of Woman Suffrage. At first, Mrs. Gage did not approve of the young actor as a son-in-law, but she could not change her daughter's mind. In November 1882, Maud and Frank were married. So he brought her around a bit. Here's a picture of Maud. And he ends up getting his job out in the Dakotas to take over for a person that he knew who had been an editor of a local newspaper. And so he then ends up almost entirely writing that what went in the newspaper. And it says here, Baum's editorials also reflected the hard times on the Dakota prairies, drought and a lack of seed wheat for the needy farmers did not improve meager business profits. In the year 1890 proved a disastrous one for the crops. Seed had to be brought from neighboring states, and work was further complicated by the cyclone that hit Aberdeen in May the 23rd, the cyclone. So there's something that spurred him in his, that he would use again. Now, Baum's editorials, he wrote, there was a threat of the Messiah War, which was to become the last Indian uprising. This religious movement centered on the hope of invoking the spirits of dead warriors to drive out the white settlers. No one was fearful until Chief Sitting Bull, one of the chieftains responsible for Custer's last stand, was asked to join the movement. Baum's editorials on the Indian situation were the least tolerant of all his work. That's in parentheses. The American Army killed Sitting Bull on orders to prevent him from leaving the Black Hills. Soon after, Custer's former regiment, the 7th Cavalry, slaughtered the entire village of Wounded Knee. Although Congress had already officially closed continental western expansion, this brutality concluded the Indian Wars and ended the frontier. Well, reality and fantasy. Well, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.